investing, and some audience come up with about they want to understand about the zoning, about like the property that they bought from the in a different zoning, and what's the meaning of
Okay,
that. Yeah.
and that's a great question. First off, what I probably need to say for when it comes to zoning is every government entity, whether it be Maricopa County, City of Phoenix, City of Mesa, they have their own zoning ordinances. As part of their zoning ordinance, they have a big map, and it shows the entirety of the city, and they set up what they call zoning districts. The zoning districts will have properties within them. They may be residential, they may be commercial properties, they may be churches,
Multiple,
schools, things like that. But they'll have individual zoning codes. Just in some cities, just the residential codes can go from a single family residence on a really small lot or a condo all the way up to big apartment complexes.
Oh, okay.
And so each of those different entities will have its own zoning. And under that zoning, it'll tell how many apartments they can have,
right,
how many units, how many people can live there, the density. And for attached to each one of those, they will also have restrictions on how big the building can be, how far they have to be set back from the property lines, how tall the building can be, how much parking they have to have, how much parking they have to have for handicap parking. So there's a variety of things that goes into each one. Generally speaking, what they do when they're selecting zoning is they look at the intensity of the use. So one of the easiest ones is if you have one home on a lot, that's probably one of the least intensive uses.
Okay.
If you have an apartment complex that has 600 apartments on it, that is very dense. That's got a high use.
Okay.
Then you move to things like the commercial sides of things. A lot of them you'll see the zoning codes as C1, C2, C3.
Okay.
Usually when you see C1, that's more of a general use. It's more like offices. And once again, the intensity is not that great. It may be a store. You could have a tailor in there. You could have a printer in there. You could have a doctor's office in there under those types of zonings.
Okay.
Then you go to one where it's B2. Now the intensity picks up a little bit more. And you may have things like used car dealerships. You can have some place that does gas stations, those types of things where the traffic is heavier, the use is heavier. And then lastly, you can get into C3, or in some cities, it's listed as light industrial, LI. It varies from city to city. So my biggest suggestion is, first thing you need to do is go to your city records, put the address in, and see what the city code, zoning code is.
Okay.
So that if you, for example, and I pulled one up here this evening, I've got a property that we've got in escrow right now.
Okay.
It's in the city of Mesa.
Okay.
And so I know from the records that it is zoned LI, which is light industrial.
Oh, okay.
So under that, I can pull up and I can look down there and I can start seeing, okay, what types of businesses could I put in there? So it has things like agricultural, livestock, animal agriculture, automobile auction facilities, bottling works, bulk mail, cabinet shops. And I know it has automotive repair in there, crude oil, petroleum and natural gas, so that if you got somebody that's got, that has propane, that's where they would have to go. Electrical contractors. If somebody is doing things like we're an auto wrecking yard, that they would go in there. The reason that they set up these different zonings is because, once again, I go back to intensity of use, but also there's a degree of hazard into it. For example, if we're talking about light industrial, it would not be unreasonable to think that they might be handling oil or paints, thinners, those types of things. So you would not want them located close to a residential area where you've got families and you've got, a living situation. You want to have other like types of businesses close by, so that they're all in their own geographic area, and they're kind of co-located.
Right.
But so, like I said, it goes back to both intensity of use as well as, I sort of equate it with risk of environmental types of issues.
Oh, okay. I see. So how do they know? I mean, like, I mean, I actually, like, you just say that, but then I'm saying, like, if why is the dangerous? Why is the dangerous of the oil?
Well, oil can be considered a contaminant.
And it's going to go through
it can go into it can go into the ground. It can go into the drinking water. There's here in the Phoenix area, we have a Superfund site.
Right.
And it's over where the old Motorola plant off of Washington and 52nd Street is.
Yeah.
There was, for years, there was chemicals that leached into the soil and got down into the water table.
Oh.
So as a realtor, if you're, and they've got a geographic area that encompasses where that all occurred. As a realtor, you have to make sure that your clients are aware. There has to be a disclosure about that site.
Okay.
Some people may have a real acute sensitivities to some of the chemicals. Now, generally speaking, in that particular one, the contaminants are in underground. They're in places where it could get into the water supply. So they monitor it to make sure that it's not encroaching on the water supply for the city.
I see.
But that that goes back to the risk factor. What types of uses are they doing on the property?
Right.
But anytime you get into light industrial, in particular, because you can have paint places, they can be using solvents.
Yeah, with toxic,
which can be very And over time, of course, they've changed the standards so that they've lowered the volatile organic compounds that are in some of those types of products to make them safer. But nevertheless, historically, some of those things have been in the ground for a long time. And as just kind of as an aside to illustrate about potential for contamination on the property that I'm working on, what we did what is called a phase 1. It's an environmental inspection.
Okay.
So what we do is we hire a engineer who is familiar with environmental issues. They do an inspection of the property. They do a history of the property, and they look for any types of chemicals, any historical records of chemicals and compounds that could potentially be polluting. In this particular case, there are some things that came up historically where there were some possible oil spills, motor oil spills, because the property was an automotive repair facility.
I see.
So there was definite eyewitnesses saying that there were spills, but this goes back nearly 30 years ago.
Okay.
In that time period, the area where this contamination may have occurred was cemented over. So now it appears that nothing is there. But because of all the information that has come forward, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bore through the concrete and take samples to make sure that it's safe.
Wow.
So that's something that you would want to
receive. That's L1. Everybody, if you purchase the property that have the zoning as LI, right? LI. LI. That we have to be careful with all that run the test and do environmental report.
Exactly. And you really need to pay attention to, especially with some of the commercial properties, to what the previous uses have been there. Because in years gone by, some of the cities were not as tight with their regulations.
Oh, I see. Wow. Yeah, that's very good to understand now, because I see like a lot of zoning is running through. Sometimes like that they put the one zoning. Is there any way that they have like a two zoning number in there?
Yes.
There's possible.
It seems like each city and county government in their zoning ordinances, they do things slightly differently.
Okay.
I mean, I know Pinell County is different than Maricopa County.
Oh, okay.
I know that that Mesa and Chandler and Tempe,
Gilbert,
they're all different.
All different, yeah.
So what you need to do, and the best place to start is, if you're concerned about the zoning, go to the city or the county where your property is located. If you're in a county island, or if you're just way out away from the city, it's most likely county. So you know which county you're going into. If it's in a city, obviously you're going to know which city. So that's where you start. You go to the city government webpage.
Yes.
And you look under development services.
Development services.
And I always just put in
the address, or what?
Yeah, there's usually an opportunity for you to put an address in there. But they're pretty good about having directions on where to get to. Once you get to the zoning ordinance on there, oftentimes you can go ahead and you can find a map, because most all of the different government agencies, they have a full map for the entirety of their jurisdiction. And once you put your location in, you can find out exactly what your zoning is. And in this particular case, I know it's going to be difficult, but this little one page is just a section. It's basically 1 square mile. And it shows all the different properties in there. It has both their assessor's parcel number. And then it has in there as well, it'll have the zoning ordinance.
Zone number.
So the zoning code is in there, and then
SGR.
And then what you would do is you go back once you've determined what your property is, what the zoning on it is. You can go back and you can look up that zoning code, and there are specific chapters within the zoning ordinances for the different government agencies. They will tell you what the minimum size of the property has to be, how big the buildings can be, how far your setbacks from the property lines have to be, and it'll also tell you what uses are allowed on that property. For example, we were just talking about LI, the light industrial. Imagine if you've got R1, which is just a kind of a standard residential lot. The last thing you would want to do is buy a house that's zoned R1 and then find out that the previous owner has been doing nuclear radiation testing.
Whatever that, oh my gosh, I really don't know, like, this is that important, about that zoning number things. But once you mention it's really, I see is like risk factor and other stuff in there that we don't even know. We got to understand well about the property, because we are just thinking, okay, that's look okay, good, and then we just purchase. But you say, like, sometimes it's underneath and go back from 30, 50 years ago. Correct?
And that's on the environmental side. On the other hand, you can go the opposite direction, where you can find that you have a property and somebody was using it in a method that it wasn't allowable on the property by zoning. And I'll give you another example of that. I recently sold a property. It was in the Southeast Valley, and it had a home that was 5,200 square feet. And it had a standalone building that was about 8,000 square feet.
Wow.
The building, when you walked into it, it was a commercial building. If you went to the restroom had stalls and urinals and all the types of things that you would expect. It had sprinkler system. There was a stage in there. There was a DJ booth in there, a dance floor. There was
like a business,
it was
like mall or something.
What had happened was a previous owner had not consulted the zoning ordinance.
The zoning,
and they built this building.
Oh boy!
And they came in with their use was they used it as a wedding venue.
I see.
And it was not an allowable use. And what happened is, sooner or later the neighbors will complain. Because there was music playing till late. It was too loud. So the neighbors...
And too many parking too.
Too many
car too.
So the county came down and they said, you cannot do that with that zoning. So, but in most all of the zoning ordinances, where there's a rule, there's usually a way where you can get an exception. And there's a couple of different ways of going and getting an exception. One is a special use permit, and you can apply for a
special use permit
just for that property to have a variance. Now, in this particular case, they went ahead and they applied for a special use permit, and the county said no.
Yeah.
the county staff said
Right.
no.
I just got to say, because they say cannot do that, and then now
Yeah.
they apply something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they said they couldn't do it. They did talk to a couple of the board of supervisors,
Yes.
and they said that if somebody really wanted to move forward and keep that as a wedding venue, that they would consider it, but they would require a number of different changes to the property. It was a large property, so that one of the things was they wanted a block wall installed all the way around the
All
property.
around. Yeah. Oh, I see.
And then
that makes sense, because that's isolate from the outside.
keep the noise
yeah,
down,
keep the noise down
lights
and all
down.
that. Yeah, insulate.
Then they would set up specific times for them to be able to do it. So
yeah.
they
certain
did not-
hour. Right?
Exactly right. But
Makes sense.
in that particular case, the board of supervisors said no, and so that owner, he could no longer do wedding venues there.
Oh my God. So then go on out with the plan now.
Yep.
And then you mentioned that, yeah, because I see like in the property that someone told me that when the neighbor want to put in the light pole, they have to go to each individual house in the area and get the approval if they can do that or not. Yeah.
In some cases, that's exactly right. I believe it's the height of the pole and
like,
how
like they
bright
don't want
the light is.
the light goes through their house or something.
Yeah.
So
Because you don't want to be sleeping in your home and have
somebody
your bedroom window and have somebody have a bright spotlight that's showing on your house all night.
Yeah. Right. So then that's another thing too. Like they asking the approval, but in this case, they cannot go. Let's say they cannot go and get the approval from the neighbor, because they're gonna say no, and they cannot operate it, and they're not gonna take it that way, right?
Right.
The county, they already make the decision. That's have to be done and all that. But at the bottom line, they cannot do that at all.
That's correct.
They don't grant it. So then all the money they put in, they build up, they planning and all that, it's just go to waste.
Well, the building was still a very nice building.
Yeah.
And so when I received that as a property to list,
Right.
what I did is I got a little inventive. I went back and because I knew I needed to look at the zoning ordinance. So I went and looked at the zoning ordinance. And of course it says single family home, and this was a somewhat rural area. So so you could do some family farming. You could do a roadside sale of produce, those types of things. But one thing that they had in there was public and quasi-public uses, including schools, churches, sporting areas, all kinds of different things. So what we did is we marketed it as a specialty.
Oh, specialty.
Commercial property.
Yeah. So like whoever that come in, they got to understand what's their plan, and if
Exactly
that property is fit them or not. Right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. Right.
And so and when the new owners came in, or the buyers came in, that's what they did, is they had a plan for how they were going to use it and stay within the zoning ordinance.
The zoning, like they can, if it's big, then they can do like selling nursery or something, or plants or whatever.
You could do daycare. You could do
daycare, or
you could do a clinic in there. You could do
anything like that, but not like a Lao and what's the difference actually? Yeah, because people, if they open any business, car running over and all that, over because they have the office hour, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So they don't go through all the night.
And that I think was probably the biggest thing that prevented them from getting it, because
I see.
We all attend weddings, and oftentimes weddings with the receptions, they go on into the night. And,
right. Yeah.
And of course, as part of the facilities at this location,
right.
they had a big bar.
Yes. Oh boy. Yeah. So, oh my. Yeah. So I didn't even know. Or like sometimes, like, how about like assisted living? Would that count? Would that allow?
Assisted living, different types of clinics.
Okay.
Outpatient clinics.
Yeah.
Inpatient.
But the resident actually stay in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those would be allowable.
That's allowed. Okay. Yeah. So
now the building would have had to have been modified to accommodate
to the approve with the state.
Yes.
Yeah. And all the zoning of the state and change everything. So now, because if you apply for multiple a special zoning, right? Then whoever operate that kind of business have to go back to the zoning and then tell the zoning that you're going to open that kind of business, and then the zoning will approve based on whatever they saw, right?
Yes.
They see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
One thing while we're talking about that,
Yes.
because you know, when you think about outpatient treatments or inpatient treatments
Right.
or rehab centers,
Yeah.
I've placed rehab centers in several different types of properties.
Right.
And one of the things is, you know, you go through and you look at the zoning, and the zoning's fine. But if it's in a project where you've got multiple owners with multiple buildings,
Okay.
they typically have an owners association.
Right. There you go.
Some of those owners associations will not allow certain types of businesses in their locations. Like if you have an owners association and it's primarily a medical dental complex, the last thing you're going to get in there is a tattoo shop.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, you won't get a car, you won't get a automotive repair place in there next to a doctor's office.
Yeah, it's true.
So I mean, that's where the zoning would have allowed it.
Yeah.
But the owners association wouldn't have allowed it.
Yeah. So I think like all these information very benefit, even with the investor that a contractor, you know, who build something, who planning to do something, right? If they build something and it's all the money gonna go to waste if they couldn't. So they have to know the first star or something, or even like sometimes when we see that list of property, we didn't know if it's legal or if it like. Yeah, so
you need to do your research.
Get that. Yeah.
Let me give you one last example, because I can think of a nice complex where they were all very professional buildings, and they had fountains, and it was just a nice campus. The original developer built that with the intention that it was going to be a medical dental center, and it never took off. It stayed empty.
Wow.
For years.
Oh.
And the biggest reason that it stayed empty is because where do doctors want to be? Where do they want their offices?
Yeah.
They want them close to the hospitals where they
can transfer the patient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you look at hospitals, you know, like Banner's got a number of them. If you look in the area immediately around them, you see a lot of doctors' offices, especially specialty type places.
Yeah. And they can follow up with the patient.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, they got smart about it, and they realized because it was so close to a neighborhood where, once again, now we're talking back to the residential zoning.
Okay, yes.
Who lives in residential zoning?
Yeah.
Families, people that have kids.
That have kids.
So what they did is that whole center became specialized as a children's area.
Oh.
So it had Montessori school in it, it had dance studios. It did have a dentist, but the dentist that came in specialized in dental
and doctor
for kids.
Doctor for
so you know, there was a daycare in there, all of those different types of things. But you think about how those businesses fit together. There are some businesses that, even though the zoning allows it, they may not be a good fit. So what you want to do is you want to look for a situation where the owners association and the other businesses are complementary to the one that you want to bring in there.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because like, so legally, like let's say, so they have to follow the city zoning.
Yes.
Allow, and then they also have to follow with the association.
If it is a complex,
if it is a complex, and all that,
Oh, if it's a standalone building, that can be entirely different.
Yeah, then that's okay. But if they belong to like other like 5-6 property in there, right? Yeah, that is very good information, Scott. I mean, nobody ever thought about that. You know, like say, oh, this is a good piece of property, and just move on. But there's a detail about it. We got to find out the zoning, and the meaning of each zoning is different.
Yes, and what types of uses.
Yeah.
So you've got zoning, but then you have uses under that zoning.
Yeah, uses, and then if that use is going to bring risk or hazard, dangerous to the life or not. Yeah, for that. Wow. So like you say like each city have they name the zoning different. Just like that, it's not like they say L.
You can those 2 or 3 letter codes with a number. It varies from city to city. Frequently, they mean almost exactly the same thing, but each city can tweak it a little bit just to accommodate their needs.
Right.
and they can, the big things that I see, especially on the residential side, is, you have to think about how are the utilities getting in there? How is the city managing? Because you look at some of the older cities, they have alleyways.
Yeah.
And so they can put their garbage cans in the alleyways. Well, the alleyways don't necessarily have good observation on them, so they may not be safe at night.
Oh.
Other cities, they've done away with the alleyway, and all the trash refuse, that type of stuff, is put out on the street at the curb.
Wow.
So there's always an impact from the way that they're zoned, the historical use, those types of things.
And when they first zone, would they ever change the zoning?
Oh, yes.
Like they do?
Yes.
Okay.
I can give you another example.
Right.
I had a 7-acre parcel for sale, and it was along a real busy street.
Oh, okay.
And the zoning on it was single family, 1 acre plot, one home on an acre plot. That's a fairly low density. So on that property, with 7 acres, you could put 7 houses.
Right.
The individuals that are considering purchasing it, they came back and they wanted to increase the density. They wanted to put in condos on it. And they were looking at putting in 18 condos per acre.
I see.
So when you start changing that density, the city is going to the city's not going to tell you no on any of this.
Right.
But there's a procedure that you have to go through. So the first step is you apply for that zoning change. And in turn, the city's going to require that you've already done some homework.
Right.
So they'll come back and they'll want maps. They'll want to see diagrams on what your density is going to be, how many people are going to live there in each, how many bedrooms.
How many bedrooms, yes.
Because, if you got
parking,
you got parking issues, and on a bigger complex like that, you have water retention issues because if you're paving parking lots and you're putting up homes, where does the water that would have seeped into the ground on that parcel, where does it go? So now you have to create engineering. You got sewer lines and water lines. So all of that has to be answered in that preliminary plan. The city has to make sure that those resources are available, because the last thing you want to do is build a nice complex, say with 100 condos on it, and you don't have any water.
Wow.
So those types of development issues have to get handled while you're going through with your zoning change.
With the zoning change. Oh,
and then typically after the planning and zoning staff has reviewed everything and felt like, okay, we can make this work, we would approve it. It has to go out to public hearings. So the neighbors all get a say in it.
I say like a percentage voting, right?
Where they can come and they can give their say yay or nay,
say yes or no,
give their opinions on it. And sometimes when they do public hearings, nobody shows up. Other times, some of those public zonings can be pretty contentious, and you'll end up with.
But they based on like the people participating on that day, or how did they based on the number to approve or not approve?
Well, what they do is they advertise that the public hearing is coming up. They set a date and time.
Right. Whoever come, then they consider that person give a talk.
Yep, and they allow them to speak.
I see.
I've seen it where residential stuff like this went through pretty easily. On the other hand, I've seen it where you've had a commercial.
I see it so many times. People like say public hearing, but I didn't understand. Do I need to be there? Like no obligation. It's like
not really. You can
I see that. Like in the city, they want to build something, they want to do something. Then they put public hearing. Now I understand. Did you explain? Oh. Wow.
But I've seen it where
some people just okay, they don't show up.
Well, and you know what? Sometimes it's a pretty once again talking about the density, the intensity of use. If you've got a bunch of single family homes and you've got another subdivision going in, and it's going to be more single family homes. Maybe maybe it's instead of 2 homes per acre, maybe these guys want to do 4 homes per acre. That's not a significant change. It's generally not something somebody's going to complain about.
Right.
But if you've got a restaurant and it backs up to a residential area.
Mm-hmm.
And now that restaurant decides it wants to do concerts at night.
Wow.
So just think, if you're one of those residents that's close by and you've got loud
It's so
music.
noisy. Yeah. And
so how does
not private anymore.
Exactly. So those are the types of things where they have
against. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I know, like my daughter used to go to Basic Scottsdale, and they have to get the vote from the people in that city because they are not allowed. And then they try to work very hard so that they can get the public hearing at the same time like that.
Yes.
And they hope like everybody agree to allow them to build a school in that city of Scottsdale.
Yep.
Yeah, I see that.
So once you get the public hearings done, then it goes, there's another governmental step to it, and that's the Planning and Zoning Commission. And those are usually citizens who are working for the city on a volunteer basis.
Right.
But they hear proposed development, proposed changes.
Proposed change.
And they can vote yes or no whether they would approve it. Now, their vote is not necessarily binding.
Okay.
But it can be passed on to either the city council or in the case of a county, the county supervisors.
Oh, I see.
And those are the highest elected officials for that government entity. So the city council can approve it, or the board of supervisors can approve it, or they can turn it down.
Oh, wow.
But once again, in that interim, there has to be another public hearing before it goes to the board of supervisors.
Like, is that difficult to change from a residential to commercial, or? Sometimes,
the city, as they go through and they create the maps, they have areas where they would prefer to have commercial development go on, even though it's an area that is currently zoned as residential. And if it's undeveloped land, that's usually the best time to do it.
Oh, I see.
Probably one of the best examples I can give you is out here in the East Valley, out by Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. There were large tracts of desert out there. And, the zoning on that, in most cases, was GR, General Rural. So that would have been one home on an acre of land. That's how they were zoned.
Wow, big house.
But they wanted to have commercial developments out there.
Okay.
So what they had to do is they had to go through a zoning ordinance change. So even when the cities or the county wants to make those types of changes, they have to go through those same types of steps, where they do a public hearing, where they let the public come in and make their comments. And generally speaking, if the county or the city has decided that they want to do something, they're going to go ahead and do it unless there's an overwhelming complaint from the public.
Wow. Yeah. But I think like the best is like we have to get from the first start, so that cannot just ignore, right? I mean, even the little things, right? Just have to get the correct right from the top.
Start with everything. Start it from the right
with
way.
The paper, with the approval, with certificate, with the all the approval, zoning, and all that.
Exactly right.
Yeah, because a lot of in the city, then I don't say much, but like outside, like a little bit of like fear, go out of the city, then that's very difficult though. Determine the building. When they want to build, like they want to buy like a big piece of land, and they build a house there. So even the zoning say single resident, and they build a house, but then they build so they can do some kind of business in there.
Exactly.
Then if they don't have association, then they're okay to do that. Or
once again, you need to go through building services.
If the building didn't know. And then so if they know, then they're gonna
if you're gonna build something, you're gonna have to go through development services, and that's usually what they call it in each of them. Sometimes it's building safety, community development, but you go through a government department for each of those government entities, and they will have their rules on how they want things done.
Wow.
And I can give you another example of where the zoning was changed, but this was changed by the city.
Oh, okay.
In Queen Creek, LG Batteries is looking to put in a good-sized plant over at Germain and Ironwood.
I see.
So the city needed to make changes to that zoning because that was originally GR, General Rural.
General Rural.
And it is now, you know, it's much more of an industrial use because they're going to be making batteries. So what do you have with batteries? You've got all kinds of chemicals.
Yeah.
And so once again, that intensity of use is not necessarily something that you want to have homes close by.
Wow.
And so at the same time, the city is recognizing, all right, it's going to create jobs, it's going to bring revenue into the city.
Right.
And that's a good thing.
Right.
But each city, they use their general plan and their zoning ordinances so that they can manage growth in specific areas. They want residences in certain areas. They want the more industrial type of business in a different area, and they want to keep them separated.
Wow. Yeah. So sometimes like we don't understand much in that situation where, like, because I see people buy a house next to the railroad. You know, like I was thinking like the only thing is too noisy. But is there any other disbenefits for buying next to the railroad?
Well,
it can run into us. I don't know.
You can always think of it if you got a house and it's backing up to the train tracks.
Yeah,
you're always going to have noise.
Yeah.
As a lesser risk on there, you could have a train derailment.
Okay.
It's highly unlikely. Trains, you know, the few times that we hear about train derailments, they're usually when there's chemicals and that type of thing.
And all that stuff. Yeah.
Where it creates a real hazard.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, there's millions of homes that have been built near railroad tracks.
Wow.
You know, all throughout the country, there's railroad tracks running everywhere. Here in Arizona, which you see in a lot of these subdivisions that are close to railroad tracks, they create a pretty good sized buffer so that the trains are not just, they don't feel like they're just in your backyard.
But like, is there shaky or anything like that when they move?
It can.
Or that, huh?
I mean, I've seen some trains with 5 locomotives on it, and you know, when they go by, they're loud, and you can feel it in the ground.
Yeah.
So that would.
And then, like, when they look for the house to live, of course, they also that's next to the light bulb. I mean, like what you call it?
Power lines.
Power line. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
There's definitely some people out there who have an aversion of being close to power lines. You know, there's been a number of studies. Some have said that there's not much that comes from the electromagnetics of a power line, yet other people don't feel the same. I personally would probably not want to be
next to
have a home next to it.
The power of this is going to get all of our power.
And once again, though, they do try to create a little bit of a buffer so that you've got an easement for those power lines to come through.
Yeah. See, that's also like some information for whoever, like a first-time home buyer. They can they see the house, they see a good price, but then they have to do research. They have to go and look at the area. They have to look surrounding. They have to see what that is, right?
Exactly right.
Because like I heard a friend said she bought it and she didn't know, and then when she come in, she realized there's a track behind her home, you know, like railroad, and she didn't even pay attention to at that time. Yeah. And so that's very important.
That's one of those things where, you know, if you are selecting a property to live in, you need to drive that around the neighborhood at night, in the mornings. You know, you might find out that if you need to leave for work at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's the same time that school is starting up.
Right.
So what happens when school starts up?
You have to start out. You have to cannot run past 25 miles.
Oh yeah, and you've got school buses and you got
everything.
kids
You have to stop there and wait.
So it could take you 15 or 20 minutes to get out of your subdivision.
Wow.
But those are things you need to discover before you buy. If that's going to be an issue to you.
Yeah, that's really good tip for that. Yeah, because sometimes people just thinking like buy a house, just okay, that house look nice and go inside. I like it, I comfortable, and that's it. And the area clean, safe, clean, and they just only come into that one time area, right? That one time frame of the day. So then they don't discover any.
See what it's like at night. Who knows? You might have neighbors that are out there racing motorcycles up and down the street.
There you go. Yeah, make a really loud noise and all that. So that's very good. Yeah, all these information are very helpful though. For the another question that I heard about city zoning. I mean, like if they buy like the special kind of zoning that they purchase that, and then later on the city can take back or something, can buy back, whatever.
I think what you're referring to is eminent domain.
Even no, there's other name, like they buy this this piece of land, and then later on they allowed to sell back to the city or something like that. Yeah. Special zoning.
Yeah, sometimes the city will do things like that, especially if it's something that's going to be in the city's interest.
Yeah.
For example, think about the big sporting arenas for football and hockey and everything.
Right.
Oftentimes that needs to be both a government and a private cooperative effort. So sometimes the government will do things where they allow them to speed up with some of the zoning changes and things like that. But it's generally speaking, it works in both the government as well as the developer's interests.
I see. So like when you when we talk about that all that zoning for people, okay, another question, that when the people doing like build up the Olympic and then some state, like this state and that's so where do they pick? Is that like city zoning or
usually you've got a coalition of government agencies. Here in Maricopa County, they've got MAG. And MAG it's a cooperative government entity, and it's got Maricopa County, it's got Phoenix, it's got all the different cities within Maricopa County. They all come in there as one large working group to work together to look for ways that they can do things that are beneficial to each other's.
Okay.
You know, so that you look at
like a business commerce or something. Chamber of Commerce.
Well, Chamber of Commerce is more of a promotional type of an entity.
I see.
But MAG, typically, you know, like where the freeways are.
Yes.
That's one of the areas that they look at, because the freeway needs to flow smoothly through one city to the next.
To the other city, yeah.
You look at Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport out there.
Okay.
MAG has an interest in that, as well as the cities that are in the East Valley.
Right.
Because at some point, Sky Harbor is going to be too built out.
Yeah, too crowded.
And so that area, because that's such a good runway already, it was developed by the Air Force years and years ago, and then turned over to the city of Mesa.
The city of Mesa.
But there's all these other different cities that have an interest in there, because those airports, and think of it as a port, they bring in goods and services and people. So there's income that's generated from them.
Like job and all that stuff.
And it provides benefit to the other cities.
Yep, that's true. The things that if we, whatever that we buy, like a piece of property, like if we see it's a good deal, we have to really dig in and see it is really a good deal or not, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, like why people are selling it, and we have to do the research. And of course, the experienced real estate broker, real estate person that helping, gotta know all these too, because that's the only way that they can help the buyer. A lot of different agent out there, but some agent, they don't go to detail. They just, okay, you like it, I will proceed with the paperwork and get you in and purchase, right? But there's nothing like that. Like if looking into everything's okay for, is that what you're looking for? You know, all that, right? Yeah.
I was interested in investing in a piece of land along State Route 24, which goes from the 202 freeway down to Queen Creek over to Ironwood Road. Yeah. And at one of the exits, I was looking at a piece of land that somebody was offering, and it had the potential to be rezoned commercial. Oh. So we looked at how the land was shaped, because it wasn't a simple rectangle. we looked at what the most basic commercial use would be. And frankly, our thought was a convenience store, a gas station, a car wash would be the. So now you come back and you take that property and you put in imaginary lines for what your building envelope is. And so that's smaller than the property line. So now you've reduced it. And by the time we got done, we realized that there was not going to be enough room for parking and for a building.
Wow.
And so we passed on that property.
But since you say that, let me ask you here. Is that okay? Is from the gas station, I'm talking about gas station. I think there's a special requirement, right? To open a gas station, like is it good to buy like existing gas station, like not operated, or build a brand new one?
Well, there
and is that allowed? I mean, easy to build.
Once again, you need to have all of your requirements taken care of.
Right.
If you're putting in a brand new gas station, there's the building requirements have gotten significantly more stringent as time has gone on.
Right.
One of the things, of course, everybody's concerned about is leaking fuel tanks.
There you go. Yes.
And so, in years gone by, if you had an older gas station, they would test the soil. And if you had fuel leaking into the soil, that tank had to be removed. The dirty soil had to be removed.
Yes.
You could put a new tank in, but you had to put clean soil in. And the state would come out.
And approve and reinspect.
And reinspect it. And all of that would be documented. Typically, Department of Environmental Quality for the state would do that.
I see. Because I see like so many existing gas stations there, and some they closed out. They don't operate it anymore.
And that's because they probably had a bad tank.
Oh. Is that expensive to replace a tank and all that?
It's a lot more money than I want to spend.
then no wonder, So those
it just keeps getting more and more expensive. And if it's a case of where somebody has been negligent over time, there may be fines on top of it.
Oh, I see. Wow. Yeah, that's fine, right?
And there could
if they get into there, then that's going to be. But will that transfer to the new owner? If
the new owner comes in and purchases the property without doing the proper types of inspections, he's responsible for it.
Wow.
And it goes back to just like what I was saying here on that light industrial, where we identified that there had been oil dumped on the property in the past.
Yeah.
So now we're having to come back, drill holes, test it, and everything.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
So
a lot of all the hassle.
And that's because, as the new owner said, he doesn't want to buy a contaminated property.
Right. Exactly.
Because the moment he buys that,
he has to be responsible for everything.
Now he's the responsible party for it.
So it doesn't matter it's like went back before the time he owns or not. No.
Nope.
Oh wow. Yeah. So those are very important facts that everyone should know, understand about it. Yeah. It's not simple. I mean, like buy a land, I think more complicated, right? Like that.
Sometimes.
I thought like a land, there's just nothing in there. There's nothing to inspect, but now you say that I see a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, you want to do your homework beforehand.
Sometimes people say like, okay, with the land, they say already approved with the water line, with everything to build up something. Then they already went halfway, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Typically, what they've already done, if they've got water lines out there, usually that means that you've got a city or somebody that's already approved that project.
Okay.
You may not have the individual homes built, but the project itself, the development has been approved.
So the water line and then the electrical line pole, right? When I drive along the way of the freeway, I back to California across almost to the border. Okay, past a little bit. Then I see a lot of like a fan, like a very stand pole and keep do like that. Is that from the city, like of? Owns that land and they put those on it.
It may be different owners who are doing it, but it's probably whoever the electric company is. That those are wind turbines that are generating electricity.
So that is owned by electric company or individual.
It could be a combination of both. It could be public land. In which case the electric company will probably lease the land to put that generator.
That generator, and of course that's have to go with the wind blow or something, because the more wind blow, the more electricity they have.
Exactly right.
Yeah, for that. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but I think that's a good business if we're into leasing that to like buy a lease a land or something, lease that to them, buy those, and it's just we have nothing to worry, right?
Some people will lease a portion of their land to cell phone
cell phone
to put cell phone towers on it.
Oh yeah, I see cell phone, but I want something like where like a usage, like electrical or water or anything. Like if we can get something like that. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna look into it and see. That's a very good idea. Something people like a tower. Oh, we're talking about like the tower. Let's say they want to do like a phone or something. Right.
Yeah. And some of the cell phone companies will lease your land.
Like outside. Yeah, we're gonna look, and I think that's a very interesting about buying land, and it's not simple as we thought. It's not simple as we thought.
And if you think about it, I know a situation where somebody allowed a cell phone tower to be put up on their residential land. They had 1.25 acres, and the cell phone company paid them a fee up front for the lease of I'm guessing it was $15,000.
Oh.
And these folks sold the house. Well, the new people that moved in, they didn't do their homework, and they found they couldn't break the lease with the cell phone company.
But they didn't have the money.
They didn't have the money.
Oh.
Yeah, they didn't have the money. But here's this cell phone tower right next to their house.
Wow.
And they're deriving no benefit from it.
No benefit?
No.
Oh. So with the tower, is that like how did they generate it?
They had
their own spot, like electrical and everything.
They had their own electric.
They built?
That they brought in.
I see. Wow, that's a bad luck, because the previous owner already get all the money, and now they just overtake the things left over.
They should have investigated it more thoroughly before they purchased.
Right. Sometimes maybe they didn't know what that is. Right? Is that? Yeah, I really don't know about it either.
It's hard to imagine, because it was a pretty big tower.
Oh, really? A really big tower. Okay, well, that's a good thing to know. Now, I know that it's come to this time, almost end of the year. Wow, so quick.
Yes.
I can't believe that. Just beginning of the year, now it's end of the year. Almost end of the year.
Yes.
So November, I think like you mentioned, the tax, the property tax went out in October, right? End of October or something. So we're going to remind them.
The bills, the property tax bills go out in September.
In September, okay.
On October 4th, or October 1st, the tax bills are due. First half.
Wow.
Typically, if you look at your residential, typically you pay taxes twice a year. You pay it October 1st, and then you pay it March 1st.
Oh, okay.
But if you don't pay your taxes on October 1st, and you pay all of your taxes by December 31st, you're not late.
Oh, okay.
But if you go past December 31st and you haven't paid your taxes, then the interest rate on the penalty accumulates at 16%.
16 or 10?
16%.
Oh my God, 16% of the total amount of the whole year?
Of the taxes.
Or half of the year.
Yep. Or whatever portion is due.
Portion of the owning. Yeah, if it's small bill, then you can pay like all by December. If you forgot, if you missed the deadline of paying the tax on October the 1st, but if a large bill, then, oh well, you got to pay the late penalty, and then remember to March 1st, right?
March 1st.
The second half of the tax for that. It's very important. A lot of people was thinking, okay, I don't see the bill, I don't pay. Is that their responsibility?
Well, it is their responsibility, but generally speaking, if they don't see the tax bill, and I should back up, because the counties will send the tax bill to whoever the mortgage company is that's on record.
Okay.
And they'll send a tax bill to the owner.
Owner. So they send both? They send,
they send both.
Okay.
So then when the mortgage company gets it, the mortgage company typically has been taking out 1/12 of what the taxes are each month so that they can pay the new taxes when they're due.
And that time then you don't worry much. But let's say if they don't collect every month, right? Then you have to understand the responsibility.
You're responsible.
And because like the impound is really weird with the mortgage company, when you guys sign the contract, some they collect the tax, they pay the tax. Some they only pay for insurance.
Correct.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So and then if we don't see, like usually time flies so fast. So sometimes people don't know about it, don't pay attention about it. If they forget like a few of the bill down the line, what effect on their property? What's going to be anything effect on their property?
If you get far enough in arrears, then what may happen is, say you've got a tax bill that's due every year of $10,000.
Yeah.
And let's suppose that you completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
And you didn't pay the taxes. The county has the because the county needs that money coming in. They're not going to sit there and just let it go very long. So what they will do is they do what they call a tax lien sale.
Tax lien sale.
And I'm not going to get into all the details of it. It's kind of outside the scope of being a realtor.
Right.
But I can tell you, every single county has a tax lien sale. And it's for properties that are in arrears of making their tax payments. So what you can do, and there are investors out there who will buy tax liens. So let's suppose that I have a property and I'm behind on the taxes $20,000.
Right.
That's how much I owe is $20,000. You come in when there's a tax lien sale and you pay that $20,000. So now the county's whole, but what's the incentive for you to buy that or to pay that tax? You can do two things. There's actually several things. Number one, your interest rate that you can achieve off that, treat it as an investment.
Right.
If I come back and I have to pay off my taxes to you, which I may have to at some point, if I sell it, you're going to get it back. But also, I get charged a 16% interest rate on what
you own,
what I owed you. For the taxes. Now, if it goes on long enough, say it goes on for 3 years, and you've been paying the taxes on my property, and I haven't paid you anything, you can go to the court and you can ask the court for a legal action so that you can foreclose on the property. And the one thing I always tell people, if you're gonna put a tax lien in, make sure you go to the county, you get their list, and you go look at the properties. Do not pay for a tax lien on a property that you wouldn't own. And what kind of property could that be? Say you got an HOA that's got an easement for utilities. And it's got its own parcel, and they just go, hey, we're not going to pay the tax bill on it. And nobody wants to buy it because it only has one use. It's a utility. So where are you going to get paid? Where are you going to get an income? It's not worth owning. So just think if you put a lot of money into paying that tax lien, and you go.
So that's another like instead of buying the property, so buying the piece of paper like the tax lien, like it's the same thing like when the people own let's say 20,000. And then when you negotiate to buy that tax lien, you can pay lower, right? And you owns it, right? You own it. You have your name on the title there as a tax holder, right? But you just say like careful about that, right? Not just for utility.
One thing I might point out, it starts off at the interest rate. If you're buying a tax lien, it starts off at 16%. That's your top interest rate. When you've got a lot of competition, you may have somebody that goes, well, I'll do it at 10%. So it's when that stuff occurs, that's where bidders can undercut each other.
I see.
But somebody
they can negotiate that. I mean, that's belong to the the county still receive the full amount.
The county receives the full amount, but the interest rate that you would receive back from the person that owns it, if they want to clear up all their tax bill, you might only have 10%. depending on how you. But once again, if you're going to bid on it, make sure it's a property that you would want to own.
Right, right. Not like something else up that property, like you say, the easement, or I mean, like the line
that has, or something. Suppose you had a piece of property that was down in the riverbed.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't. I mean, it is a piece of land.
Yeah.
But you don't want to develop in the riverbed if there's
right,
water release.
Exactly, because like of course we gotta understand, we gotta know what we buy. Right.
Exactly right.
Yeah. So we have to do some inspection. We gotta know what is that the piece of property or
exactly
is just,
right
something.
It's always a case of buyer beware.
Yeah.
So the county will provide the information, but it's up to you to go out and do the due diligence.
They only give like a parcel number, right?
They'll give the parcel number,
and then from the parcel number you can find out the location of that parcel.
Exactly right.
And then you have to drive there or whatever, or find a way to know about
Use Google Earth, something.
Yeah, now they're very good. Like when you type in the address or something, they will show the picture and most 360 degree.
Most of the time, if you go to the county assessor's websites, they will have aerial photos.
Ah, okay.
So that you can zero in, and most of the time it will be have the property boundaries overlapped on the photo, so you'll have a good idea what you're looking at.
Like you can look at the structure, but don't believe into the like a nice photo. It's going to be still the nice area, right?
Go look at it.
Yeah, things might change for that.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's good. I mean, like, so we all understand now. It's not we know that when we own the house, then we gotta pay for insurance. Don't miss that, because like time gone by, like per year, like either the mortgage company will pay for you or you pay for it, right? And then the tax. That's the property tax, because people thought like they pay all cash the property, so they don't need to worry about anything. Then that's not right. So you still have to pay for the taxes every year and the insurance. Right. If you gotta have insurance, right? Even you pay the house cash.
Yes.
Right. So those are the information, and I think like we almost are up again. So we will thank you so much for providing all the facts, all the information, very helpful to everyone. Like want to get into different type of investment, understand more about even like with a contractor or somebody. Oh, we haven't get into the detail for the building with how high in Arizona, all that. Like
that's an easy one, because once again, when I was saying about you pull up the zoning ordinance. In the zoning ordinance for each type, like let's say that we go back to the commercial, say you've got C1, C2, C3, they will have what size buildings you have. They'll tell you, for example, suppose you got 100 by 100 foot size square lot. It'll tell you how far back from the road the building has to be. It'll tell you how far back from the back boundary the building has to be. And then it'll tell you how far in from the sides and from other businesses who have their lots next to yours. It'll tell you how far you have to be back from that. So that what that new imaginary set of lines does is that creates what's called the building envelope. So that's the area that the building has to fit within.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So those are very good. I mean, a lot of facts, a lot of information there. I hope the audience will really appreciate for all the information you provide. And I think like for this coming week, it's like the Thanksgiving, right? So if you in town, if you're not in town, then we miss our audience for the coming weeks.
That's correct.
We'll see, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I then thank you so much for watching VAA TV Real Estate with Mr. Scott Bartlowe. For any information or any question that you want to contact, please see on the screen. That's Mr. Scott Bartlowe office, and the phone number and the email address right there. And then you can also send to VAA TV to the VAATV at gmail.com, VAATV.com at gmail.com, or messenger us. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Bye.
LinhVi xin cảm ơn sự theo dõi của tất cả quý vị trong những giây phút vừa qua. Chương trình Vaatv xin kính chào, tạm biệt và xin hẹn gặp lại quý vị vào lần phát hình kỳ tới. Mọi chi tiết về thông tin thương mại và bảo trợ, xin mời quý vị hãy liên lạc về địa chỉ email vaatelevision@gmail.com và số điện thoại là 480 289 9816 480 289 9816, website vaatv.com và vaaznews.com. Xin kính chào, tạm biệt.